Hey viewers, and welcome to Get Well, Stay Well on Revelation TV. You're joined by me, Cyrus Fernando, and as always, delighted to be joined by our lovely Felicity. How you doing?
Hi there, Si. I'm really good, and I'm so excited about our program today because we're going to be doing something on diabetes.
Right.
And in fact, it's really getting people well from diabetes because a lot of people have been told that, you know, they've got diabetes, there's nothing really you can do about it, you're going to be on drugs the rest of your life. But in fact, the same team who did the truth about cancer, and Mike Adams and Ty Bollinger and all these brilliant guys, they got together with a man who had actually got himself completely well from diabetes. He was huge, he was obese, he was very diabetic, he was really bad. And he got himself completely well, and all naturally. So it was great, and he decided as his sort of legacy for life, you know, he would try and put this stuff out, just as I did about cancer when I got well from cancer. Okay. He decided the truth must come out, and it's ridiculous.
How would you explain diabetes to someone if they're suffering from diabetes? Or imagine they've just gone to see a doctor, for example, and the doctor says, "I'm prescribing you have diabetes." Obviously, we know the different types of diabetes, and we'll probably cover that later on. But how would you define diabetes?
Well, it's a blood sugar problem, and it comes from what we're eating. So when we're eating high glycemic food, we are going to shoot our blood sugar, spurt it right up, and then it'll fall down again, and we are in this sort of yo-yo. It's a horrible situation to be in.
So what are the high glycemic foods?
The high glycemic foods are definitely the sugar foods, so that would be like bread. And most people don't think that bread is sugar, but when we digest bread, it turns to sugar in the body. So anything, biscuits, cakes, bread, anything with wheat, and a lot of the meats as well are going to cause problems with the blood sugar. And it's amazing how people can get well. And again, it's on God's diet. It's coming back to the vegetables, particularly the vegetables.
It's interesting when we go into a supermarket and you see all the different variety of foods available, and you see the biscuits, for example, and they say reduced sugar by 20% or 70% less sugar, but that still means there's 30% still in there.
That's right.
Included. What should we be looking for when we go to a supermarket?
Well, you see, the other thing is with processed food that unfortunately they use the artificial sugars, which are even worse. So we're going to get caught either way, and most people are addicted to sugar. So it is a problem. It's a problem basically with the pancreas, and the pancreas is just unable to make enough insulin, and the insulin receptors in the body are no longer working. But we can reverse it. That's the great news. And you know, I love to bring good news to our viewers, and I'm really excited by this. And I had known about this for some time. There's a doctor in America he's made films on it as well, and Dr. Gabriel Cousins, who people can Google, very interesting man, got a place called the Tree of Life in Arizona, and literally gets everyone on diabetes too. He gets them all well, and some diabetes 1 cases as well.
Right.
So it's really dynamic, it's wonderful, it's great news, but it's not great news for the big pharmaceutical companies who are making all the money out of the insulin and the metformin. So, you know, when we go to our ordinary GP, that's what they've been taught, that you get the patients onto this rather than trying to educate them about their diet.
And how would you define the different types of diabetes? Obviously, you've just mentioned type 1 and type 2. How do we differentiate the two there?
Well, type 1 is for children. Children are born with it sometimes, and that's from a high lactose intolerance because the mother has had a lot of cow's milk in the body. You know, they're always talking about the dangers of cow's milk and how we can indulge in the nut milks as much as we like. But this is diabetes 1, which used to be called juvenile diabetes.
Right.
So that's much more difficult, and more difficult to get the pancreas working again. It may not be possible. So some people may be stuck with it, but it is a shame because the mother has actually eaten, you know, in her life and then when she's pregnant. So, and then diabetes 2 is something we develop about 40, 50 years old, really through our diet. And we haven't had a clue that we were making ourselves ill.
I guess that is a concern if we're only prescribing type 2 diabetes when we're 40 and 50 years old. So we're completely oblivious in our 20s or in our teens if we feel we haven't been born with diabetes and therefore we're going to be absolutely fine for the rest of our lives. We're then consuming lots of sugars and all the bad foods for us, and it's only when we reach past the 50-year-old stage then we realise, oh my goodness, I do now have type 2 diabetes.
Well, it comes as an awful shock to people, and the usual symptoms are that you're very, very hungry even after you've eaten. You need to go to the toilet more often. Blurred vision maybe. Some people just go into a coma, you know, they suddenly collapse, and they have no idea. Sometimes there's a heart attack. There's all kinds of different things that go wrong with the body. But
what are the early telling signs there? Even are there signs that give us a warning from when we're in our 30s, for example, or at a younger age?
Sure. Well, the first thing is the weight around the tummy. So more than 35 inches, as I always say, for the guys, 35 inches around the tummy.
Yeah.
30 inches for the girls. You are pre-diabetic, whether you know it or not, and whether anyone's explained that to you or not. But there can be very thin diabetics as well, and that's just the pancreas is not working, and they may be very thin. I know a very fit military guy, you know, who's really ill with diabetes, and has been to me 3 or 4 years in succession. He comes every year to have a sort of refit, you know. He wants to come down and learn all about it again and really get inspired again to, then he gets it back in under control.
And he's got type 2 diabetes?
He's got type 2, yeah, it's a big
So if he's
guy.
looking after himself and he's obviously eating well, staying fit, exercising, how would he develop type 2 diabetes?
Through stress probably, and stress is another big thing. As we know, stress can cause us to be eating the wrong things, and you know, if you've been in a military life, you're eating the wrong food as well, so you're not getting the fresh fruit and vegetables that we would have if we were at home. So yes, people who are under a lot of stress, and you know, he's been struggling with this for some time, but he can reverse it. The problem is that his wife doesn't support him in the right foods.
Oh, right.
So he goes back and gradually he eases back into the diabetes habit again, as one does. But his daughters have been on my courses, and they've become vegan, which is great. So he's getting support at home now.
If someone does visit you, Felicity, and they suffer from diabetes, do you treat type 1 and type 2 in different ways, or is it basically the same method?
No, it's the same thing, basically.
So what is the number one thing you first tell the person there? What's the first thing they need to do?
You need to start testing yourself to see what different reaction foods are having on your body. So you have a little tester kit that you have at home, prick the finger, get just a little drop of blood out, and then you see on your glucometer, or your glucose measurer, which is now, we're going to be showing a clip about new ones as well. So it's quite interesting. People won't have to prick the finger in the future, because there you are, a technical man. We've got technical apps now that you can put something on the body and it will actually show.
We look at our mobile phones, we can check our heart rate, our pulse and everything else. Anyway, before we go any further, let's look at our first video, and this is talking about overcoming diabetes.
It's been called the Black Death of our times. Its rapid spread across the globe has astonished governments, scientists, and doctors worldwide. It has just risen to become the #3 killer in America, and it's on its way to becoming the #1 killer worldwide. Diabetes and obesity. We used to know it as the disease of our grandparents. Now we know it as the disease of our children. A shocking 20% of our children are now obese, making them 5 times more likely to get diabetes. And did you know? 2 out of 3 of us with diabetes will die of a heart attack. It's the #1 cause of blindness and lower limb amputation, and a leading cause of Alzheimer's, kidney failure, and death by stroke. Listen to this. Out of every 2 people watching this right now, 1 of us already has diabetes or pre-diabetes, and 70% of us don't even know it. Yes, it's bound to touch all our lives. You, me, our grandparents, our best friends, our spouses, and especially our children and grandchildren. And as if the physical suffering is not enough, diabetes and obesity are often accompanied by depression, shame, and isolation. Once you've fallen into this emotional black hole, it's often very difficult to find your way out. Some lose the will to live. So, is it even possible to protect yourself and your family? And what can you do to rise above all these shocking statistics? Yes, you can prevent and reverse diabetes and obesity when you know how. I've seen it with my own eyes time and time again. You can keep your family safe when you have the free information we reveal to you in this breathtaking documentary series, I Thrive, Rising from the Depths of Diabetes and Obesity, featuring over 55 world-renowned experts, including scientists, doctors, researchers, plus dozens of inspiring survivors who will share critical information with you about true solutions to these demoralizing diseases. You'll discover how to prevent and reverse diabetes and obesity, and not just survive, but thrive, without using toxic, disease-causing medicines that have simply become part of the problem. Hi, my name's John and I'm 53 years old. I've got type 2 diabetes and I'm morbidly obese. I'm so excited to share this docuseries with you because I don't want what happened to me to happen to you. You see, when I started on this journey to find answers and make the docuseries, I didn't know if I'd live long enough to see it go live to the world. I'd been lucky enough to survive one diabetes heart attack, and the next could come at any moment. But I heard stories about people with diabetes who reversed it and were thriving again. I wondered, could it be true? I was sick and tired of feeling helpless in this battle, and I had to find out. I thought if I could just help one child out there prevent or reverse diabetes or obesity, just one, my journey will be worth it. And so I set off as a one-man camera crew on an epic whirlwind adventure, against my doctor's orders, but following my heart. And the strangest thing happened. It was as if I was being guided. Soon, I found myself hot on the trail of new scientific discoveries and cutting-edge treatments. What I found is breathtaking and life-saving.
That's John Moe in there. Fantastic video, very well put together. Did it all by himself, and it's the wonders of social media and reaching out to a wider audience. But it's so interesting. Some of the doctors that he showed on there are some of the doctors we've featured quite regularly on Revelation.
Do you know, it's the same crowd of amazing doctors. They're called, you know, my health heroes. I really do love these guys. And they've come out with the truth, and they find someone who, you know, has really walked the walk. And many of these doctors have as well themselves. So it's like Dr. Mark Hyman with depression, you know, people who've walked the walk and they start coming out and really telling the truth. So
and that's why they have such a passion for it. It's like yourself, Felicity.
Yeah.
You've gone through this, and this is why you have such a passion to get the message out. And just like Mark mentioned, John mentioned there on the video, is even if I can just reach one child, just change one life, that's enough. And that's all they want to do, is get the message out there.
And you know, I'm so thrilled because in my emails, you know, every day, I mean, there are so many people who have got themselves well from diabetes, and, you know, of all ages, because children as young as 8 are having diabetes. And, you know, it's wonderful to think that this child is going to be spared all this ghastly suffering. When I got on the plane the last time, you know, there was a man with no legs who was being brought on, and he was coming back to Spain. You know, and what a trauma to lose legs and lose eyesight as well. That's another thing with the blurred vision. So as soon as you start reversing the diabetes, you know, all these symptoms go away. And it's so important for people to be educated about it. I just love making these programs because I know we're reaching a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, you know, if people can prevent it, how wonderful that will be.
Yeah, and if we're talking about reversing diabetes, and maybe viewers are watching us today and they're suffering from diabetes themselves, what is step number one? What is the first thing they need to be doing?
The first thing is probably to get hold of this docu-series because it's well done. You can see that there are a lot of medical doctors involved with it. And when people unfortunately go to their ordinary GPs in UK, they're probably told, no, you know, you get on insulin or metformin or something. But, you know, this is the cutting edge way that people are now getting well. And in fact, they have been using this for a long time, but it hasn't really got out there. And, you know, these things need publicity, Si. And like The Truth About Cancer with Ty Bollinger. You know, once they made that film, suddenly it was viral. It was all over the world.
Yeah.
And so the face of the way cancer is treated and prevented is now so different.
And that's the point there, Felicity. We're utilising the internet online, you know,
Yeah.
we're using it in a positive way of really getting the message out. We compare ourselves to 15, 20 years ago, and you wanted this information, you literally need to stand off your sofa, walk into the library and search through the hundreds of books that are out. But now we can just go onto the internet, do a quick search on Google, go onto YouTube, do a search, and you've got the information there, you've got videos there. And the way these videos are so well produced, as we've seen on quite often on the Revelation programs, and obviously your segments as well, is they're 3 minutes, they're 4 minutes long videos, they're bite-sized, but they provide so much information to really inform.
That's right. I mean, that was a half-hour clip, which is actually, it's free on the YouTube for everyone to see.
What is it? What would they need to type in?
It's called I Thrive, THRIVE, I Thrive, I do well, I recover, I Thrive. And it's brand new. It's
and
only
that's
come out.
John Mohan.
John Mohan.
And that's Mohan, M-O-H-A-N.
Correct, yes, yes. And he's brought Ty Bollinger in, he's brought Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. John McDougall, a lot of the doctors who we are already featuring. And, you know, they're telling the truth about, it's not only diabetes, it's cancer, it's autoimmune disease as well. It's when we do clean up our diet, when we do try to get rid of the toxicity in our lifestyle and eliminate pollution, you know, we can get ourselves well. But it is a matter of education and not medication.
Okay, so let's just walk into a supermarket right now. Okay, we've got a variety of different types of foods in the supermarket. What are the foods, number one, we should be avoiding straight away?
Well, you want to go down the side aisle where they've got all the fresh fruits and vegetables. You want to pick up your stuff, and basically you want to walk out of there. Because down the middle, as we know, and all those little alleyways, there's all the processed food. And, you know, you've got the meat counter with the slabs of dead meat. You've got the fish counter maybe, and we now know, you know, in my lifetime, how things have changed, that one could have the fresh organic meat in the old days. You know, you had your own chickens clucking around the farmyard, that was all fine. But nowadays, everything is so processed. And even the fish from the sea, as we now know, you know, Sky TV are doing this all the time about the plastics in the sea.
Yeah.
So I do think that is really getting out now. So really the fish and the meat are out. They've got the animal hormones as well. So yes, go down the fruit and vegetables, the nuts and the seeds. And of course, the companies, the food companies are cottoning onto this. There's more and more organic stuff. You know, we have several well-known supermarkets here in Spain, and they have big organic and bio or eco alleys now where you go down and everything
It's that health mentality. I mean, we look at Spain and we look at the Mediterranean diet, for example, and they're very health conscious, I guess. My next question regarding diabetes, what is the time period? How long does it take to be cured from diabetes?
Well, as Dr. Gabriel Cousins has, he has a three-week course that people go on in Arizona, and he can get everybody completely clear in 3 weeks.
And if people are
amazing,
if people want to do this from their home, they don't want to be going to Arizona from their home?
They can do it from their home as well, just as I did, because you know when I was dying of pancreatic cancer, I got 6 weeks to live. I didn't go to Mexico. I did everything at home. I was directed by the doctor there, who was kind enough to bother with me. You know, Dr. Francisco Contreras is amazing, but you can find doctors who will help you. And really, this docu-series that has come out, I Thrive, I think has got 7 different parts to it. And I have watched all of them. And so if people come on a course, obviously I will show them all 7. But people can really watch it. They can learn all about it online. They can do it. They can get the little blood count, the little glucometer, I think they're called, so that they can actually do the finger pricking at home and test themselves. So there's no great mystique about it. You have to be careful. Obviously, if you're a severe diabetic, you've got to be very careful not to go into comas. You know, you've got to keep your blood sugar on an even keel. And people learn how to do that.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we've got this little video here explaining about the glucometer, as Felicity says. So let's have a look at this now.
Now at 5, for diabetics, one of the worst parts about keeping their blood sugar in check is constantly having to stick their finger and test their blood. Now a new painless tester could help diabetics say goodbye to those finger sticks. Health editor Dr. Maria Simber has more on how this newer device works.
New mom Samantha Lowshelter has type 1 diabetes. Her pancreas has stopped making insulin, a hormone needed for processing sugar. She has to check her blood sugar throughout the day to make sure it's not too high and not too low. Typically, this would be done with finger sticks. She would check 15 times a day.
It's no fun, of course. My fingers are calloused because of it.
Now all she has to do is look at her phone.
If I turn my phone to the side, I can get a graph of my blood sugars.
Her readings are transmitted wirelessly every 5 minutes from a sensor she wears on her skin.
It tends to be within 10 to 20 points of my actual blood sugar, which to me is fabulous.
These sensors check a glucose or blood sugar level in the fluid in between the cells. This gives you the same reading as checking a glucose level in the bloodstream. These devices have been available over the last 5 years, and they're getting smaller and smaller. While it sits on the skin, it has a small filament that goes into the skin with an automatic inserter.
My husband's been the one who's most of the time been inserting for me.
An alarm sounds when the sugar is too high, and you can give yourself more insulin. And the alarm sounds when it's too low. When it happens in the middle of the night or while driving, it can be a big problem.
They've recently changed it where you cannot turn off that urgent low alarm because, of course, if you are in a situation like that, they want to make sure you're hearing the alarms, and I'm sure it's a liability thing.
Well, your brain has to have glucose. If the brain doesn't have glucose, it can't function.
Commercial insurers have been covering it, but Medicare has not. The device itself is about $1,000, but you also need the actual sensors.
$300 for a 3-month supply. We did have to pay a little out of pocket, and we pay monthly to get the sensors, but the insurance covers, I think, 80% of it.
And while the sensor is well suited for certain diabetics, more people could benefit.
I think it's available for almost any patient right now for type 1 diabetes, but with type 2 is also, there's no reason you can't do it.
Could the skin sensor mean the end of finger sticks? Largely, yes. Though currently, the FDA has approved use of the device, but with 2 finger sticks a day for calibration.
You do have to check, I would say, at least 2 to 4 times a day. It is a super reliable device as long as you're willing to calibrate it when it wants you to.
And you may still have other inconveniences in everyday experiences.
If I'm going through metal detectors or going through concerts and things like that where it's constantly going off and you have to explain your situation or request a special pat down, none of that was ever enticing to me.
I always teach them now finger sticks because you never know when it's a machine that's not going to work.
Samantha's favorite part? At a glance, she can see which way her blood sugar is trending.
It is a really fabulous tool, and I'm very, very thankful that it's available to me today.
I'm Dr. Maria Simber, KDKA TV News.
There you go, utilising the modern technology. Felicity, why do we need to be pricking ourselves twice a day on our finger?
Well, 15 times a day, they were saying, to really monitor yourself if you're really bad with it. And so 15 times a day is an awful lot of calluses on the side and the end of the finger, you know. And if you're out and about, you don't want to be doing this in front of other people. You know, it's invasive, it's unpleasant. It's horrid for children, of course. You know, they cry and it's horrible to have to do that. So it will be wonderful when they have the new technology that you don't actually have to hurt yourself every time to do it. I mean, it's not painful, but it's unpleasant, obviously. And I think it's wonderful that, you know, technology is moving in the right direction. But basically, you know, this is a huge problem, Si. I mean, there's 50% of the world has got diabetes, especially the western part of the world, which on the processed foods. So in countries where people are living on rice and vegetables, of course, they don't have it. Yeah. And we're going to have to go back to that. We really are.
How do you see that the people's diets, say in Europe, for example, in the United Kingdom, are our diets changing perhaps over the last decade? Are we becoming more and more educated in staying healthy?
I think it's really started in about the last 5 years. I think people like Philip Day and myself, even me, I think we have reached a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the doctors are trained to give medication. It's all about big pharma. You know, doctors, when they come out of medical school, have a huge debt, and they have to work that off.
Yes.
They work terribly long
Yeah.
hours. I mean, I've seen this with my loved ones being in hospital and being in hospital myself. I know just how tired they are. They're exhausted. And all they can do really is trot out exactly what they've been told to do by Big Pharma. And there's a lot of money. It's a very lucrative thing. So a diabetes patient is a patient for life, according to them. So you're going to be selling an awful lot of the medication. But as we now know, people can actually prevent it and they can reverse it. So if people are interested in doing that, if they'd contact me and I'll put them you know, on the right path, basically. They have to do it themselves. Nobody can do it for them because it's what you actually put in your mouth. It's the sugar drinks.
Yeah.
It's the, you know, the sweet, sugary things that we get in our lives that are so tempting.
We've talked about how important it is to stay away from sugar, but more importantly, as we come towards the end of the programme, what should we be consuming? We're obviously talking about juices, fresh juices and vegetables and fruits and everything else like that, aren't we?
You know what? It's back to vegetables. It's back to God's diet. It's the, you know, the onions, the carrots, they're all inexpensive. It's drinking lots of water. Again, we should really rehydrate the body. And H2O is, you know, this is the basis of the Gerson therapy as well. So Gerson works wonderfully for this as well.
And what foods would particularly help us to overcome diabetes?
Well, I think it's the, as I say, the carrots, the onions, the very simple foods that are not high glycemic. So you want low glycemic foods. And basically, when we get onto fruit and vegetables, even the fruit, which has got a little bit of sugar in it, but it's a different kind of sugar to the sugar that we're getting in the processed food. So God's diet is always right. We come back to the seeds and the nuts as well, and people can reverse it and get well and stay well. Is that
Felicity, that's
exciting?
Thank you so much indeed for joining us today, and thank you for all the information. Thank you also to our lovely viewers as well. Do remember to stay off the sugars, consume more fruits, vegetables, juicing, blending, and drink more water, have more sleep, and obviously keep your relationship with Christ. Thank you so much indeed for joining us today. We hope today's programme has been interesting for you. Please do log on to our website for our catch-up service, www.revelationtv.com. Till next time, viewers, thank you so much. Take care and God bless. Bye.